Hello, I'm Robert Joseph Thomas from Boston, and I would have loved to have been there, but I'm right now about 39,000 feet above the ocean, flying into India. Unfortunately, I had a cancellation and rebooking. Anyway, here I am, and I will talk about the breathing aspects of REM sleep. I'm going to take a little bit of a deviation because we are generally quite familiar with the various features of breathing in REM sleep, but my goal here is to use breathing in REM sleep to give us deeper insights about REM sleep. I have conflicts and acknowledgements. None of them are really relevant to my presentation here. The various dimensions I will be going through would be control of breathing in REM sleep homeostasis, endotyping of sleep apnea, the stability domain of REM and non-REM sleep, non-EEG sleep staging, the impact of REM breathing on cataplexy and narcolepsy, the REM behavior disorder phenocopy in sleep apnea, and a few words about sleep apnea pharmacotherapy. Now, all of you are fairly familiar with what happens to breathing in REM sleep, but just to complete the circle here, changes in REM sleep really plot towards making us vulnerable. There's reduced tidal volume, there are tidal volume fluctuations, there's rhythm fluctuations causing essentially ataxic breathing. The diaphragmatic EMG is fractionated. There is relative metabolic independence, so that periodic breathing is more or less abolished in REM sleep. There's upper airway hypotonia, there is some hypoventilation, and of course, there is a gravity interaction, which is a profound way of saying there is body position effects, which are important. A few words about REM sleep homeostasis. Much is made of the circadian regulation of REM sleep, especially forced desynchrony protocols clearly show the circadian and homeostatic effects of sleep. Homeostatic mechanisms are thought to dominate non-REM regulation. But REM sleep fragmentation experimental demonstrates a strong homeostatic aspect of REM regulation. Plus, in sleep apnea, when you apply CPAP, you can clearly see a rush of REM sleep. REM dominant sleep apnea, however, provides a nice live model of telling us the homeostatic drive within each REM period. Now, where could this REM drive be stored? Could be synaptic strength, could be areas like the claustrum or the supramammillary nucleus. That's yet to be proven. An example of what I mean by REM sleep homeostasis. So this is classic REM dominant sleep apnea. But you can see during each REM period, there is a progressive worsening of oxygenation and a progressive improvement in the same REM period, more or less like sleep drive, delta power going up and down within the same non-REM period. So this profile of oximetry essentially is a reflection of REM drive within a given REM period. Of course, when you apply CPAP, you have a REM rebound with literally a sleep onset REM period. Sleep apnea endotyping. Obstructive sleep apnea has many driver mechanisms. Airway collapsibility, impaired negative pressure response, high loop gain, low arousal threshold, sleep fragmentation, amplified wake sleep transitional instability. Some OSA patients have hypoventilation, some do not. Of course, there can be ataxic breathing, especially with opiates, but also some neurological disorders. Here's an example of how REM sleep and the breathing in REM sleep can give us physiological insights. So this V-shaped desaturation is very typical of REM sleep. This belt or band-like desaturation is typical of high loop gain sleep apnea. This poor resaturation suggests hypoventilation. On this other figure, this is from the watchpad device. Here you have REM dominant apnea. But see how as the night goes along, you have an impairment of resaturation. As the REM drive stiffens and gets more and more powerful across the night, you have also resaturation abnormalities. So this gives you a sense of the kinds of interaction of breathing and REM going beyond just the AHI. Now, at high altitude, this is simulated altitude, there is central sleep apnea, short cycle. And in REM sleep at high altitude, this is simulated altitude, the same subject has no apnea. This is well known. The same thing occurs with non-REM dominant high loop gain sleep apnea, regardless of the degree of obstruction. So the top panel is a short cycle, non-REM dominant, self-similar sleep apnea. This is driven by high loop gain. The same patient in REM sleep, the pattern changes completely, and now you have long cycle with variable events typical of REM sleep. Of course, if you apply CPAP to this patient, they will do well in REM sleep. They may not do as well in non-REM sleep. In fact, if you go too far with CPAP, you will induce central apneas and then result in treatment-emergent central sleep apnea, which, by the way, is an outcome of poor treatment of sleep apnea. I don't believe it's a disease by itself. So here's another example of non-REM dominance and high loop gain extracted from the polysomnogram based on the differential effects of REM sleep on high loop gain. So REM sleep reduces, in fact, it abolishes largely high loop gain driven sleep apnea. So on top, you have non-REM respiratory events with self-similarity early in REM sleep. Early in non-REM sleep. Later in the night, as sleep drive dissipates, there is even greater short cycle respiratory events. But then the person goes into REM sleep and the breathing changes completely. So this can be quantified. This is a method to assess self-similarity. Essentially, I have tagged wake, REM, and non-REM self-similar respiration. This is automated computation extracted from respiratory effort signals, though it could be applied to other signals too. The turquoise tags are self-similar periodic breathing-like oscillations. This is agnostic to whether there is flow limitation or not, whether you score it conventionally as obstructive or not. This is based on an analysis of the neural drive, which is assessed through the respiratory tidal volume output. Let's go next to the stability domain of sleep. All of you are very familiar with non-REM stability and instability. You have, in fact, in this audience, the leading light of cyclic alternating pattern and non-cyclic alternating pattern. I would add to this amplified wake-sleep transitional instability, but that's for another day. REM stability and instability eluded me for a little while until I realized that its best expression is when there is non-REM breathing in REM sleep or REM breathing in non-REM sleep. So that's where you have this admixture of REM and non-REM causing instability of REM sleep. It occurs at transitions into REM sleep. It can be seen during REM sleep, but I have never seen it during a transition out of REM sleep. In transition out of REM, boom, you're fully into wake. There is no period of transition. This blurring of boundaries of REM is actually quite typical of narcolepsy when you look at the EEG. But I suspect in narcolepsy, breathing also will show similar patterns, though I have not personally looked at it carefully. This transitional instability, this unstable non-REM sleep can actually last several minutes in sleep apnea syndromes. Now, can you quantify instability using the standard stages? You can't. However, the ASM manual goes into great pains to define transitions of REM to wake and N1. Actually, they are describing some versions of unstable REM sleep. Rodent REM sleep is probably too short to see by modality. Extrinsic instability, of course, is induced by sleep apnea, but intrinsic instability is probably relevant, at least for REM behavior disorder, narcolepsy, and PTSD, and I think worthy of further study. What does non-REM instability look like? Well, this is a cyclic alternating pattern and its associations. You have the A phase of CAP, the B phase, A phase, and so on. And then, of course, you have heart rate fluctuating along with the A phases, reflecting the vertically integrated domain of stability. Now, this is an example of vertical instability. That is, you're now looking at signals from the EEG all the way down to oximetry. And if you measure blood pressure, you'll see similar patterns. Note how on the top left, you have respiratory events. The EEG shows cyclic alternating pattern. In the middle figure, in the middle part of the figure, there is an abrupt switch into stability, unprovoked. This is a natural switching between cap and non-cap, or stable, unstable, non-REM sleep. And it continues into a period of stability. This is the exact same individual, continuous segments. But what does REM instability look like? It's basically REM breathing in non-REM sleep, or non-REM breathing in REM sleep. So let's look at REM breathing in non-REM sleep. So this is a hypnogram showing severe sleep apnea. You have here a band-like desaturation of high loop gain sleep apnea. But out here, you have classic REM dominant apnea. But see, during the period where it's clearly non-REM sleep on the surface, you have REM breathing. You see that again here during the titration. So this is unstable REM sleep. How about REM breathing in non-REM sleep? On the left side of this figure, a 10-minute snapshot, you see repetitive respiratory events in a person who has high loop gain obstructive sleep apnea. About 3 minutes before surface REM is recognizable, denoted by the R annotation, breathing abruptly stabilizes, and now you have REM breathing. So here you have REM breathing occurring in non-REM sleep. Can you see this during an individual REM period? The answer is yes. So here you have a transition into REM sleep, where you have overt Cheyne-Stokes periodic breathing in non-REM sleep. And at the start of REM sleep, you actually still have it persisting. In the middle of the REM period, same individual, see how basically breathing is completely stable. And towards the end of that same REM period, now you have return of periodic breathing. It's a classic example of unstable, stable, unstable REM sleep. As REM drive increases, it converts the unstable breathing, the non-REM unstable breathing, into stable REM breathing. Here's an example of mild apnea in non-REM sleep. Person is still in non-REM sleep in the middle segment, but there's severe apnea. The EEG, EOG clearly shows this is non-REM sleep. And then soon after, the person now has REM sleep and the identical breathing. I hope you get the idea of stable, unstable REM sleep. Okay. Now, as you know, wearables are the rage. And all wearables try to define REM and non-REM sleep, deep sleep, light sleep. But essentially, they use heart rate variability and respiratory encoding of plethysmographic signal oscillations to figure out if something is, if a stage or if a state of sleep is REM or non-REM. So the combination of heart rate variability and breathing patterns more or less defines REM sleep. The only reason that REM sleep was defined primarily by the EEG, EOG, EMG was that in the early days, it was mostly neurophysiologists who were interested in this domain. If cardiologists came up with a classification of sleep, they would have used respiratory and ECG signals, and same with pulmonology. So there is no reason to think that you can't actually identify REM sleep without the EEG. Now, home sleep apnea testing gives us an opportunity to recognize the domains of REM sleep quite easily in situations like this snapshot. You see the intermittent icicle-like or V-shaped desaturations. There is nothing else on earth which causes this kind of abnormal breathing except REM sleep, obstructive sleep apnea. When I read a home sleep study, I have no hesitation in saying this is REM dominant sleep apnea. While many physicians will say, well, we cannot differentiate REM from non-REM without the EEG. That is not correct at all. Cataplexy modulation. Of course, narcolepsy does not prevent aging. And I've seen many more older narcoleptics, and some of my own narcoleptics are getting older, of course. There is inevitably some sleep apnea at some point in time. And apnea and REM sleep can worsen REM phenomena. So I have a patient who is 77 years old, lifelong narcolepsy, doing well on oxybate, but the last maybe 5 years or so, cataplexy has been slowly increasing. I added venlafaxine to the oxybate, but still, it was still problematic. Finally, I said, we need to look at your sleep breathing. The patient was reluctant. I said, fine, we'll postpone it as long as we can. But anyway, we did a sleep study which showed substantial REM apnea and sleep fragmentation. And then the person came in for a CPAP titration, and this is the hypnogram of that, showing a sleep onset REM period. This is despite being on oxybate and venlafaxine and substantially fragmented sleep. We are able to successfully treat the breathing, and the cataplexy actually is much improved. So the increased fragmentation of REM sleep from sleep apnea increased REM drive, which then brought out cataplexy and similar features. And we had to treat the apnea to get the person back to baseline. RB phenocopy. Sleep apnea and periodic limb movement disorder can mimic REM sleep behavior disorder. Is it a true mimic, or is there already some abnormal REM motor control which is then triggered? Maybe both conditions are possible in a given individual. But seeking REM without atonia after treatment of sleep apnea may provide key information, as in this instance. So this is a patient who literally was falling out of bed with what seemed like dream enactment behavior. The person came to me for RBD not responding well to melatonin and clonazepam. So this is our polysomnogram, which showed substantial sleep apnea and both upper and lower limb activation. And in fact, during the study, the person almost fell out of bed. Then we applied CPAP, and this is REM sleep now, showing that there is actually REM without atonia, and there was a behavioral major body movement in REM sleep, but far less vigorous and vicious than in non-REM sleep. And after treatment of the apnea, after a few weeks, the so-called refractory REM behavior disorder was no longer refractory. Pharmacotherapy of sleep apnea. Norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors are fairly an intense study for obstructive sleep apnea, clinical trials, both industry and non-industry. Now, sleep fragmentation is an inevitable consequence of raising norepinephrine in the brain. Even though it may help the breathing, sleep is definitely affected. And sedative anticholinergics, oxybutynin or eroxybutynin, as well as trazodone and other drugs have been tried to reduce fragmentation and may aid by improving respiration and REM sleep. Now, these drugs also suppress REM sleep percentage. So if you have REM dominant apnea, you'll have less apnea. And maybe it also, by reducing REM drive, reduces the intensity, the biological intensity of REM sleep. So plausibly, nearly pure REM dominant apnea can be fully treated by REM suppressing medications, as well as REM intensity modulation at the same time, especially if their non-REM sleep quality is really good, they'll be able to handle the disruptive features of norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. So in summary, the focus of breathing in REM sleep has always been on AHI, hypoxia, hypoventilation through upper airway and ventilatory interplay. But I'd like to take a moment to suggest that the study of breathing in REM sleep provides vast other opportunities for understanding REM, its biology, its interaction with disease, and really new opportunities for translational research and clinical care implementation. Any questions, feel free to email me. I wish I was there to be able to participate directly. But thank you for your attention, and I hope to see recordings of the rest of the symposium. Thank you.